unimaginative folks who never fail. And today, I will address the people who influenced me so I can influence others. My life began 54 years ago. At that time, I had no idea who or what I would be in life. I was a kid with boundless energy and a big dream. I loved history, and I loved talking to people 20 years older than I was. And as a kid, 9 years old, I would listen to the radio every day. The Civil War had just started. It was a fight between Gawan and Ojukwu. Every day, I would listen to Radio Biafra to hear what Ojukwu was saying. 10 minutes later, I would listen to Radio Nigeria and listen to what Gawan was saying. It exposed me to communication at the highest level at a young age of 9. And every day, I would listen to the radio until the war ended, January 10th, 1970. On that day, at the age of 12, my father came back from work, and I said to him, I said, "Papa, General Philip Effiong is going to make an announcement at exactly 2 o'clock. I think the war is going to come to an end." And he said to me, "How do you know?" I said, "I heard on the radio that Ojukwu had left Biafra in search of peace. And since the real estate that Biafra occupied at the time was so small, I did not see how the war would continue." My brother at the time was an Air Force pilot on the Biafran side. He, at the time, had gone to Biafra to resign from the Air Force. At the border, he was arrested and locked up for a year, released and forced to fly for Biafra. And we wanted him back. The announcement didn't come at exactly 2. My father went to work. Sometime at 3 o'clock, the announcement came, and Major General Philip Effiong accepted defeat. 2 days later, the instruments of surrender was accepted by General Obasanjo at Dodon Barracks. So I remember those dates. I remember because, and a lot of things influenced my life. And my journey to who I am today began from the age of 9, because I was conscious of who I was and what Nigeria was. And as people talk about politics today, I remember as a child growing up, violence about politics did not begin today. It began then. The biggest battle in the Southwest was between Awolowo and Akintola. As a child growing to school, I used to see dead bodies on the road, people set ablaze because they disagreed with the other political opponent. It bothered me as a child. On one particular day, I saw an old woman being stoned by some kids. When I came back from school, I saw her dead body. I asked why, because I was a kid. And I was told she was a witch. And so they stoned her to death. I saw that. And I saw the destruction that followed decisions of politicians who were more concerned about political power than the people they claimed to govern and the illiterates that found themselves in political office. I was a child, but I paid attention. I saw death and destruction. 1 million people died during that war, even though today we never celebrate that event. But as I grew up, went to high school, St. Gregory's College, there wasn't much happening then as a child. We had no DVDs or CDs, no cassette players. All we had was 4-hour television from NTA, 24 hours of talk radio, FRCN, and Voice of Nigeria. That was the only entertainment we had. If you wanted to play, you played with a bicycle, or you rolled a tire on the streets. That's all we had. So in 1970, I was very excited when one of the greatest musicians on earth came to Lagos. And I jumped over the fence at St. Gregory's College to watch the show. We eventually got punished. But his name was James Brown, and he influenced my life. James Brown was the first concert I ever saw as a child. And what inspired me about James Brown all right, say it loud, I'm black and proud. James Brown was an inspiration to me at the time for what he stood for. A lot of you don't realize that as successful as he was, the godfather of soul, he lost a fortune because of that song he wrote. When he released that song, Say It Loud, I'm Black and Proud, white America turned against him. He was seen as a militant, the way you see he was under surveillance by the FBI, and it ruined his life. But it inspired me the same way Awolowo and Akintola and Gowon and Ojukwu taught me to be strong and made me understand about Nigeria. So I listened to James Brown and I followed his path. And I saw him perform. I realized he was a black man who cared about black people and the black cause. He had no education. If you read his books, he talks about him being in school. They would send him home from school because the teacher would say, Mr. Brown, you have insufficient clothes. That was how poor he was. And he'd be sent home. But that was the beginning of my understanding about life, entertainment, and the things that I do today. The next most significant event in my life was in 1977. This was 1970 at the Onikon Stadium, Lagos. The war had just been over, and there was a lot of celebration in the land. And those we defeated in the war, the Igbos, guess what? After the war, they won the Principal's Cup. Schools from the East won the Principal's Cup. The Rangers won the football. Every trophy, every tournament in Nigeria was won by the Igbos right after the war. It didn't make any difference. They were strong. They were strong. The same way Germany recovered after the Second War, Japan recovered after the Second War. Defeat is not a bad thing. It made them strong and creative. I used to ask Gowon a question. I said, Vice Admiral Wade, why did you dismantle the military-industrial complex of Biafra after the war? He said to me, you know, that was a mistake. But at the time, we thought Biafra would rise again. And so they dismantled all those scientists who developed bombs and weapons and cars and automobile and alternative fuel that they used to fuel the war machinery between 67 and 70. They destroyed that system, and now